Morning and a good Sabbath to you all. This is Bill Bullock, and I am coming to you live once again from the Biblical Lifestyle Center in Texarkana, USA. Let me know you're with me. Drop a note to us if you would, and let us know where you are and what's going on in your life. If you wish any concerns, questions, comments you might have, it is our chance to spend a little time together on the Creator's beautiful Sabbath. We are engaged in a marvelous enterprise, a world-changing, life-changing at least enterprise. It could be world-changing if enough people would engage with it, and that is the Torah cycle, the annual Torah cycle, the digging deep into the Creator of the universe's instruction manual for life as a human being in the mortal body on planet Earth in such a time as this. So we are in this series this year in the year from creation 5785, which we're about 1/5 of the way into. And this particular, we're using the title or the topic heading, Walking in the Light. Walking in the Light, discovering the secret wisdom or the hidden wisdom that's encoded within Torah's timeless stories. Walking in the Light, discovering the secret wisdom that's encoded within Torah's timeless stories. This is episode number 11 out of a total of 54 of these segments. Thank you for joining me in the weeks that have passed. I encourage you to join with us in the weeks to come as we continue this series. This week it's Parsha number 11, episode 11 of the whole series. It's called Vayigash, an ancient name given. Vayigash means to approach, to draw very near, as an intimate, as a friend, as someone who wants to engage on a personal level. Vayigash, now make that be your commitment, that this is your season to Vayigash, to be one who joins, who comes close, comes near, and as an intimate, and as one who wants to draw into the program. The title of Vayigash, as I said, comes from a Hebrew verb. It is nagash, nun gimel shin, nagash. Interestingly, all the letters come from the dreidel that we've been using during the Hanukkah season. But nagash means to draw near. And to draw near, come close, as and at a level of intimacy that is applicable to a trusted friend, an advisor, a confidant, a servant. Its first use is found in Torah in Genesis 18:23. The illustrative first use describes Abraham's approach to the Holy One back in that time to discuss the Holy One's plan concerning Sodom, Gomorrah, and the cities of the plain. Abraham nagash, he drew near, as in at a level of intimacy that was applicable to a trusted friend, an advisor, a confidant, or a servant. Do you have that approach? Do you have that desire to get that close, to press in closer? Well, that's what we're going to be talking about in this section, this episode of Walking in the Light. See, we're coming close to the end of the first book of Torah. Every book of Torah, and this was Genesis we've been studying, every book of Torah lays a foundation for the next book. And every next book of Torah, the succeeding book, always builds upon that strong foundation. So you can't really understand one without the other. You can't pick and choose verses like people do with the New Testament or with other holy texts that they use. This is a story that's unraveling, being unfolded for us. And every part of the story as it's being told is going to be important, not only for that particular aspect of the story, but for every aspect of the story that's going to follow. So we come to the conclusion, or getting next to, this is the penultimate parsha, or segment, or episode of our studies in Genesis. We'll go on to Exodus in 2 weeks. But as we get to the end of this section, we come to the climax of it and lay the foundation for the next book and the next series of events and stories. And so we've come to the point where we're realizing it is time for something significant to happen. It is time, beloved, for the great trial of the nations. Ready or not, here we come, we being the people of the covenant, the descendants, be they lineal, be they through engrafting, of the covenant of Abraham, of Yitzhak, and Yaakov, and of Joseph. Ready or not, nations, here we come. We're drawing close. We're nagashing. We're coming near to you offering ourselves as friends, offering ourselves as confidants, offering ourselves in this intimate way. But, ready or not, here we come. I encourage the nations, I encourage the peoples, I encourage the ethnic groups and the cultures out there. As this season of time comes, and B'nai Israel, the seed of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, is being introduced and being put in forefront and on center stage of the world. Ready or not, here we come. We're drawing close. Be very careful how you act now, how you behave to us. Remember Genesis 12:3. Those who bless you, the Holy One told Abraham, I will bless. But those who restrict and limit you and put you and demean you, I will cause to have no influence. I will curse, as it says in the English Bibles. And also remember Matthew 10, in the words of our Messiah, Yeshua, blessed be his holy name. Our rabbi said in Matthew 10, when you go into a household, when you Nagash, when you go into a household, he said, speak shalom to it. And if the household is worthy, let your shalom come upon it and infiltrate it. But if it is not worthy, then let your shalom return to you. And whoever will not receive you, here we come, ready or not, nor shema, pay attention to and resonate with your words, whoever will not do that when you depart from that house or city, shake off the dust of your feet. It will become sowing and reaping cycle of the dust of your feet. As you have received dirt from them, they will receive the things that they have sown into your life back to themselves. And so he goes on, the Messiah goes on, assuredly I say to you, it will be more tolerable for the land of Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment, than it will be for that city. Behold, I'm sending you out. Ready or not, here we come. Behold, I'm sending you out as sheep among wolves, so be wise as serpents and harmless as doves. Well, these are the words that we must remember as we say ready or not to the world. Here we come. B'nai Israel, the seed of the covenant, is going to go on center stage. The seed of the covenant is about to be placed in the forefront of everybody's view. We'll be very close to some of the nations, the raging nations, some of the peoples that imagine vain things will be put out there. So how will they respond? I'm mindful of a song, a secular song that came out maybe 10, 15 years ago. That had a haunting title, or at least a haunting line. It says, say something. I'm giving up on you. Say something. I'm giving up on you. Well, I don't want to try to get you involved in that song or its emotions. I want you to catch those words. Because those are the words the nations will be saying to B'nai Israel, to the sons and daughters of the covenant. Say something. We're giving up on you. And now to them as well. Let the dust off your feet say, but say something back, because we're giving up on you as well. Oh, may that not be the case. May we understand that now, as we are being brought into the forefront of the spotlight of the nations in this latter day season, as we are being put on the center stage, this is a litmus test for the nations and the cultures and the ethnicities and the generations of this age and this world. See, important visitors are drawing near, as they did to Egypt. As this is the Parsha, this is a section of Torah. This is the part of the story that talks about the great migration of all of the seed of Israel, all the seed of Yaakov, all the seed of Yitzhak and Abraham, all the seed of the covenant back from Hebron in the Holy Land down to Egypt, setting the stage for the next series of stories. Important visitors are drawing near, both in our Torah text and in our world. Important visitors are coming to your cities and your villages and your internet screens and your television screens and all your ways of communication. Important visitors are drawing near or nagashing to you. Who are these visitors? They are the Holy One's Son and his secret agents in disguise, his disciples in disguise. Careful now, be careful, nations, cultures, ethnicities, generations. Be careful now how you receive and how you treat these visitors that are coming to your midst. how you respond to them, and what you will listen to and learn from them, or versus turn away up your noses at and walk away from. Well, these things will determine whether you walk in the Holy One's blessing or whether you walk in the curse of Sodom, Gomorrah, and the cities of the plain. This is important. The next 4 weeks of earth time, and I will tell you that from according to the secular calendar of the Gregorians that the world tends to like to follow, this is the 4th day of January of 2025. Over the next 30 days, over the next conclusion of the cycle of the moon of Tevet, over these next 30 days from January and into February of this year, be careful. This is the trial of the nations, but it is also the trial of the people of the covenant. Both are saying to the other, say something. We're giving up on you. Now, during the time of the trial of the nations, our trial is a little different than that of the nations. It's not how we treat the nations so much as it is how we maintain the shalom that we're supposed to be broadcasting to the world and offering to the world. Our test is to maintain covenant identity and humble focus on our mission, and never to envy the nations or the peoples or the cultures, never to assimilate into the nations or the cultures or the peoples, never to retaliate and take vengeance against the nations or the cultures or the peoples, never to behave arrogantly or speak critically toward the nations or the peoples. They don't know any better. We need to speak in other ways. We need to give those among whom we are deployed, the nations, the peoples, reason and justification to bless us, not to curse us. Because if we give them justification and reason to curse us because of our bad behavior, our arrogance, our vengeance motives, our assimilation, our envy, if we allow that to happen, then the result will be that the nations that are being tried will be cursed. And it will happen on our watch when we could have done something about it. And they're saying, say something. We're giving up on you. Now, beloved, let's get involved in our studies today as we know what's at stake. Now comes the parsha of Yehuda, Judah's ascendants arising from the dust. When we gave up on Judah, after we'd seen what he'd done, after we'd seen the mistakes that Judah had made, the Holy One is not giving up on Judah. Do not give up on Judah. Do not misunderstand what I'm saying. Yehuda's ascendance is the key to everything. His arising will be like life from the dead to the entire world. This is the parsha of Yehuda's prototypical ascendance. And this is also the parsha of the consequence of Yehuda's ascendance, Joseph's reconciliation with his brothers. The whole story of Torah is about brothers and about the conflict of brothers, about elder brothers, younger brothers, and about conflict between them, and about and this is about reconciliation. This end of the story, the end game, is the reconciliation of the brethren. It will not happen without Yehuda's ascendance. It cannot happen without Yehuda's ascendance. So this is the parsha of Yehuda's ascendance. It is the parsha of Joseph's reconciliation with his brothers. It is the parsha of the migration that will set the stage for the greatest story of deliverance ever told. A story that involves Yehuda's ascendance. It involves Joseph's reconciliation with his brothers and this whole pattern that's set for reconciliation and restoration. And it also, this parsha will end with the covenant family's early days in Egypt, in the nations, when it negashes. With that, let's sing our call to worship, and let's get our hearts in tune and our minds open and our wills ready to surrender to the Creator of the universe by worshiping Him, acknowledging Him for who He is, how blessed He is, how honored we are to know Him and to know His Word. The call to worship, beloved, is the Barachu, the blessing before reading from the actual words of the Torah. Sing with me if you know it. The Hebrew will bless your spirit. Baruch et Adonai Hamvorach. Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leolam Vaed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar banu mikol ha'amin ונתן לנו את תורתו. ברוך אתה אדוני, נותן התורה. Amen. And now would you open our eyes, O Holy One, our God, that we may see wondrous things in your Torah, for we are just strangers in this earth, so do not, please do not hide your commandments, your instructions, your directions from us. With your minds open, your heart open as well, your spirits ready to receive and to flow. Now gather round, children of the Most High, because it's story time again. Let's talk about the context. Where did we leave off last week? We're in the middle of the silver cup scandal, the scandal of the testimony of the stolen silver cup. It should remind you, hopefully, of this testimony and the scandal of the bloody coat that was presented to Yaakov by these very same people that are involved in this story 20-something years ago. The silver cup scandal is in place, and Benjamin, the youngest child of the covenant, is now in captivity. He's been framed by this Zaphanat Paneah character in Egypt as being a thief who's stolen his silver cup. And that testimony of that cup in Benjamin's sack has resulted in his captivity. And it's a scheme being played out, but we don't understand what the scheme is. Yaakov's worst fears that he would lose this son, Benjamin, as well as his other son, Joseph, many years ago, is those fears are being realized. Oh, what shall we do? And then we see the beginnings of Yehuda's ascendance at the end of last week, Genesis 44, verses 16 through 17. Then Yehuda stepped up and said, What can we say unto my Lord, speaking to Zaphanat Paneah, this seemingly Egyptian ruler who has just taken Benjamin captive? What can we say to my Lord? What shall we speak? Or how shall we try to justify or clear ourselves? God, Elohim, has exposed the iniquity of your servants. We are undone. We are exposed. Behold, we will be slaves unto my Lord. We, as well as he with whom the cup is found. What a stunning statement. He's offering, instead of just one Hebrew to become Zaphanat Paneah's slave, imprisoned, then he's offering the entire crew, all the brothers. What a statement. What is he doing? Let's see what Zaphanat Paneah said. Zaphanat Paneah was taken aback. He said, But far be it from me that I should do as you say, for the man in whose hand the cup was found, he will be my slave. But as for you, go in shalom. Speak your shalom to the household. Go up in shalom to your father. And that's where Parsha Vayigash ended last week. And this now we begin with the studies of Parsha Vayigash. Opening lines beginning with Genesis 44, verse 18. I'll read it in Hebrew and give you as best an English translation as I can on the spot. Vayigash elav Yehuda, and then Yehuda Nagashti. He drew near. He came very close in intimacy unto the man, Zaphanat Paneah. Vayomer bi Adoni, and he said, Please, now my Lord, Yedaber na avdeka davar be'osnein. Let your servant now whisper a matter in your ear. Ve'al yikar abka be'avdeka. Do not be harsh or angry with your servant. Ki kamoka kefaro. Because you are like unto Pharaoh. And that begins our study. We have Yehuda arising. And we'll talk a little more about his arising, about him finally saying something because the world was giving up on him. The world is ready to give up on us. We need to say something, and we need to say something that comes from the kingdom, comes from the light, as opposed to coming from the darkness. We don't need to lash out in blame. We don't need to lash out in arrogance and pride. We need to speak something that will bring light to the world, inspire, and lead the world through its current crisis and the crisis that's about to unfold over the next 30 days. So the first thing, let's outline the parsha. Let's go through what this parsha is going to contain. First, we'll start with Yehuda's proposal. And that proposal is going to go beyond saying, well, just take us all into your employ. No, he's going to go to the heart of the matter. He's going to offer himself. Yehuda's proposal will be of self-sacrifice, of surrender of his will to the will of the master, in this case, Adoni, his master. Yaphanat Panea, but higher than that, to the creator of the universe. So Judah is going to ask that he, not all of them, he personally, the one who said Ma Betza whenever Joseph was being imprisoned, put in the pit, and he said, what's it in it for me? What's Selim? This same one is going to now change what he said. Say something. I'm giving up on you. Yehuda is going to ask that he himself be allowed to substitute himself for Benjamin and take upon himself whatever punishment is due, whatever punishment the silver cup crime that's been alleged deserves. He will take that on himself. And he explains why. Because he says if Benjamin does not return to Yaakov our father with the rest of his brothers, then the father will be broken and will be grieving and will be perhaps die of bereavement. This great ascendance now of Yehuda will be the foundation for everything else that happens. Because the next thing that's happened is Joseph will be undone. Joseph will not be able to, the whole identity that he had assumed, the whole mask will fall, the costume, the disguise will collapse, and Joseph will reveal his true identity. He will claim tell them that he holds no grudge against the brothers. The reconciliation will occur. No grudge, no vengeance urge or desire against them for the wrongs that they did to him, because he's going to say it was through those very wrongs that the Holy One placed him in a position to do such wonderful things, to feed the entire world during the famine. The third thing, the next part of the story as it unfolds with the great storyteller, is Joseph's going to give his instructions to his brothers as to what to do. In light of the reconciliation, what will Yehuda and what will Joseph and what will the other brothers, what is going to happen from here? What is the vision going forward? Joseph directs his brothers, in this case, to go back to the land of the patriarchs. Tell Yaakov at the family encampment at Hebron, tell him all that has happened. Bring revelation, and then bring everyone all together, packing up everything and bring it back to Egypt, where they'll be situated safely, tucked away, introduced gradually from Goshen. Joseph commits that if they do this, he will provide food for the entire family as long as they need it. Then the next section, the next level of the story, based upon all that, there will be a great emotional release. As they see that there is hope, say something, I'm giving up on. I'm not giving up on you. You said something. And so here we go. The emotional release will take place after revealing his true identity. Joseph's going to go to each brother one by one. It's not just him and Yehuda. It's not just him and Shimon and Reuben and Levi. It's every single brother one by one. And he begins with his own whole brother, Benjamin, the youngest, the most vulnerable. Benjamin, the one who was just taken captive and traumatized. Yes, he goes to Benjamin and he embraces each one by one, and he weeps on their neck with them, the emotional release. And then in the next phase, as we begin to story, it continues to unveil. We'll have the fact that Pharaoh finds out. Nothing goes on in Egypt, or in that matter for the world, without Pharaoh, because Pharaoh has eyes and ears everywhere. And when Pharaoh hears that Zaphanat Paneach's brothers, his viceroy, Zaphanat Paneach, has brothers who have come from a far country, and they are now talking, and I'm sure he found out also that Joseph had spilled the beans about who he really was. And so Pharaoh issued an invitation to the entire covenant family to come to Egypt, to Nagash, to live on the best land in the country and to eat the fat of the land. Oh, what a tempting invitation. Oh, what a beautiful promise it was. Here we come, ready or not. The next part of the story is the brothers then return home. They go back to visit their father. What a story they have to tell! But what testing will be had? Their own part in this play, their own part in this deep story is going to be revealed finally for the first time in 20 years. The brothers return home and they go back to Yaakov and they tell him the story, everything that was said, everything that was talked about, everything that happened. They tell him the story. And Yaakov has to deal with this new truth. You see, there's the truth that we think we know. And then there's the reality of what really went on. It goes beyond truth to reality, that which heaven scripted and designed. So the brothers report to Yaakov, and Yaakov at first is incredulous. He can't believe it. He doesn't want to believe that they were guilty of such things. He doesn't want to believe what his son has suffered. He doesn't want to know how to handle this. But then he sees certain things. He sees the wagons that Pharaoh sent. These are Pharaoh's wagons. They have his markings. What they're saying is true. Pharaoh wouldn't send the wagons. Loaded down as they were with provisions and extravagant gifts of luxurious items coming from the culture of Egypt, unless this was all true, that Joseph was alive. His son was alive. That there is hope. And that not only is he alive, he is in control, in charge, in rulership in Egypt. And the story continues. The storyteller will go on. Yaakov, when he hears the stunning news, he will not believe, but when he sees the wagons, he will make plans to go to Egypt, to spend some time with Joseph, to reconcile, to reunite with his beloved son, to have the family come together again. And as it was said, as it was prophesied to him. And so they begin this process, and they make up a covenant caravan, and all 70 of the covenant people of that day, this is the first migration, they will begin to head their way from Hebron in the promised land all the way down to Egypt, where they will be situated, safely tucked away temporarily in the land of Goshen. And while the covenant caravan is in motion, still in Eretz Yisrael, at Beersheba, a very important place in our covenant relationships with the Holy One. While in Beersheba, Yaakov is going to have a night vision. He's going to have one last final God encounter of the era and of the book of Genesis. One last God encounter, and it's coming in the form of a night vision. And in that night vision, the Holy One's going to speak the words of the Creator of the universe. Heavenly speech in Hebrew is going to come out, and it's going to say what we would translate in English is, do not be afraid. Lo tira, who don't be afraid to go down to Mithraim, to the place of limitations and restrictions and tight straits. Don't be afraid to go down to Egypt. And the Holy One promises his witness will be with them, and that he will, while they're in Egypt, make provision for them and make of them a great nation. And then the Torah is going to begin to conclude in the wrap-up of this old story by giving us the first census of Hebrew souls in the Torah. All who made the trek from Hebron to Egypt were then listed by name, by clan, so that we would always remember the 70 from which the nation of Israel devolved. The 70 who would be called to say something before the world gives up on them. And now there are so many more. So then Yehuda is chosen to act as their forerunner. Yehuda's ascendance and stepping forward to speak, to actually begin to project the wisdom of the Holy One, to act as wise as serpents, harmless as doves in that situation, not to speak truth to power, but to whisper gentle words of wisdom to power. That's what Yehuda did, that he acted, then ascended. Now he's going to be presented and set forth as the forerunner. He's sent ahead of them to the land of Goshen to go and set things up for the covenant nation, the covenant people there. And then finally we have Joseph's reunion with Yaakov. After the nation comes the 70, the caravan of the 70 comes down to Goshen. Joseph leaves his duties for a few days and goes down to Goshen to welcome his family, and welcome his father and reunite with his father personally. Oh, what a day of reuniting. Oh, what a day of teshuvah. Torah says that when the two saw each other, when Yaakov and Joseph, the father and the son, saw each other for the first time in over 20 years, they cried a long time. They wept a long time. Don't you know they did? There was such joy in that weeping, and yet such pain and catharsis being released. Then Joseph gave instructions to his family on what they needed to say to Pharaoh, how they needed to navigate this Nagash encounter with the nations, the raging nations. The older brother of Bnei Israel, there are two. There is the western, the older brother, which is Egypt, Mitzrayim, and there's the eastern older brother, which is Babylon, of the Chaldees. These different brothers, and we see the whole story of Torah is about these brothers. The whole story of the world is about these brothers and about our interaction with them. And then the next part of the story continues. Yaakov and his family actually meet the Pharaoh. A delegation of 5 brothers is selected to meet with Pharaoh, and they, as instructed by Joseph, they tell Pharaoh that they are shepherds because that will keep them locked into Goshen, because the Egyptians don't like shepherds, and Goshen is far away and unique and separate. That gives them the freedom to develop and prepare themselves for the further, deeper interactions that will take place in the book of Exodus. Pharaoh assigns them the land of Goshen, and they'll keep this Goshen picture. There is a Goshen vision that we need to have, that the Holy One will provide us a Goshen in the times that are coming. Get a Goshen vision and understand the protocols of Goshen living. Pharaoh assigns the Bnei Israel the land of Goshen to practice their vocation as shepherds. It's not luxury. It's hard work. On the other hand, it is that which we need to be able to be safe and fed and perpetuate. So Joseph introduces Pharaoh to his father, and after a brief conversation about Yaakov's age and the conditions and the days of his life, Yaakov does a strange thing with a dignitary in his palace. Yaakov blesses Pharaoh. And you will be a blessing to every family on the face of the earth, we're told. And then we have the story of the famine's prophetic fallout. Beginning in chapter 47, verse 13, Torah describes in detail a series of radical economic and social policies that Joseph, as Zaphanat Paneach, has to institute in Egypt so as to handle the final 5 remaining years of famine. Someone has to have a plan. Someone has to say something. Someone has to come up with a plan. And these policies are prophetic of the end of days. First, the money supply will be centralized and brought under the power of the ruler, in this case Joseph, a benevolent ruler, but ultimately the beast. Second, after the money supply is centralized, the second part of this end-game story of the latter days, the prophetic famine, the prophetic fall, is that the barter currency and material possessions will all be centralized and under the power and control of the state, of the beast state. Third, people's homes, homesteads, family farms, small businesses, and all their lands and all their properties of real estate will be taken over, nationalized by the state, taken over and nationalized by the one world order government. And finally, everyone will be subjected to personal servitude. Everyone will become only a slave. They will own nothing. They will have nothing. They will have no vision. They will be told what to say, what to think, what to do. That's personal. These are the policies of the prophetic end of days. Joseph, as a benevolent leader, introduced these policies because of the critical nature of the famine and what had to take place. Oh, but woe whenever Joseph is not in charge, whenever anyone besides a son of the covenant is in charge. Oh, how they will misapply these policies that are prophetic of the end days. Under Joseph, the servitude will be benevolent, but once he is gone, the one world government will show its true colors, and it will be ugly. Finally, the conclusion of Parsha Vayigash will be when the family settles in Goshen, safely tucked away in its little haven where the Holy One has made for it, hiding away from the prying eyes of the world. The family of Yaakov, the family of the covenant, will start their sojourn in Egypt pleasantly enough. Pharaoh and the Egyptians will leave them alone and let them do their Hebrew stuff, their shepherd stuff. And everything they put their hand to in the early years will be extremely extra fruitful. And the population of the camp will grow from 70 to, well, We'll give you the rest of the story a little later on in the books of the Torah. And Joseph assures us anyway that the famine is going to be over and done in 5 years, and prosperity will return to the earth and to the land of Canaan. This is only going to last 5 years, and we can all go back home to the land the Holy One promised to give to Avram and his seed forever. Right? What could possibly go wrong? Or on that next week and throughout the next book of Torah. But now, we've got a few more minutes, so let's rewind back to the beginning of Parsha Vayigash. Rewind to chapter 44 of Genesis, verse 18. And we find Yehuda on the clock under the gun. You recall, he took a vow. He's a father himself now. He knew how his father felt about losing children. He had actually lost children before. We can read chapter 38 of Genesis to understand that story. He had lost children before, and so he now had a different perspective on a kinsman in trouble or a father who was grieving. So he took a vow to return Benjamin to Yaakov whenever this trip to Egypt was over. And now that is in jeopardy. That vow is in trouble. Then Yehuda has to adult. He has to think fast. He has to forsake self-interest and what's right or wrong or what's moral or immoral. He has to approach the situation like a father or a patriarch instead of like a arrogant, angry, easy to offend, outrage person of the nations. He has to be like Yaakov was at Shechem. The brothers were ready to do vengeance and wreak havoc. But Yaakov was trying to build a hope for the future. So Yehuda has to adult. He has to think fast and forsake self-interest and approach the situation, the challenge of the vow being broken like a father, patriarch. What would Yaakov do? What would Mashiach do? What would Joseph do? He has to come up with both a vision and a plan for a different and better outcome than what appears to be the inevitable outcome of the people in power. Do you have that ability? Are you ready in your time, on the clock, under the gun, to make the right move, to have a vision and a plan for a different, better outcome, to forsake self-interest, to put aside anger, offense, outrage, to put aside even issues of who's right and who's wrong and moral and immoral and righteous and unrighteous, and to do what's necessary to make a better outcome for all of mankind. Dig deep, Yehuda. I seek into your hearts. I speak to your spirits. Dig deep, Yehuda. This is your time. All you Yehudim out there, all you Yehudas, Judas out there, beyond the flesh, think beyond the flesh. Think beyond your pseudo-intellect screaming ideas and opinions and self-talk. Think beyond all that. Awaken your God-breathed neshama, the breath of life that was breathed into Adam and is breathed into every human being born thereafter. Awaken your neshama, Yehuda. Dig deep. Dig into your covenant identity. Dig deep. In the next few moments, in the story that we're reading, in the next few days, in the world in which we're living, will set the tone for the stories that our children tell about Yehuda and about the nations. But be aware, as I've told you, this is not just about some Yehuda that lived 3,000 years ago. This is about us. Crisis situations are coming in the world and coming soon into our neighborhoods, into our countries, into our families, and into our political systems that will determine what will be written and said about us, the people of the living God, as well. Say something. Say something wise. Say something harmless and fruitful and yet loving and that will inspire. Say something that will fix the world. We will be called upon in the next few days to choose covenant identity and calling over personal self-interest, over fleshly desires, urges, and appetites, over ideology, over theology, over political opinion, over political party, over ethnicity, over nationality, over opinions of any variety, over offenses of any variety, over outrages, over attractions and revulsions. Over all those things we will be asked to step up and say something. Some of us, beloved, hear me now. Some of us, a relative few, will be a Yehuda arising. We will rise to the occasion. We will tap into our emunah connection, the connection of the deep faith that says we're carrying a life force and a light into the world. And that's what we're going to release, not our own fleshly, personal, or pseudo-intellectual ideas. Some of us will tap into our emunah connection. Some of us will get into messianic alignment. The neshama will take control over the nefesh, the mind, will, and emotions. And then the neshama controlled nefesh will take control over the flesh and its bodily appetites, urges, and hormone releases. Some of us will tap into that and we'll get into the messianic alignment. Some of us will develop a Redeemer's vision. We will see into the heavenlies and see what the Redeemer's vision really is for the world and for the situations we face. Some of us will begin to speak the language we will be so familiar with. We will speak the language of the courts of heaven. We will speak the message of the king's council chambers. And we will begin to lead and inspire and encourage and bring about tikkun olam. Some of us, a relative few, will rise to this occasion, will become Yehuda arising. We will say something before the world gives up on us. Others, however, perhaps the majority of you, of those, and I pray it's not you as you're listening to this, but others will choose the way of the raging nations. They will murmur and complain about their lot or about the injustices of the world. They will cast blame. They will throw shade. They will blow smoke. They will resort to buzzwords and talking points and cliches and profane slogans, and they will become parrots. Parrots, the birds who speak things they do not know and just repeat phrases that they have heard. They will become parrots, and they will not say anything that will not cause the world not to give up on them. They will repeat talking points and cliches, and they will shout and profane slogans and march in streets, and they will prove themselves to be just one more part of the real problem that lies at the root of the crisis. But you know, there is a choice to make. Will we be among the relative few who rise to the occasion and have a Yehuda awakening, or will we be those who, all the many, who follow the ways of the raging nations? Prepare now. What does it take to become a Yehuda awakening, a Yehuda arising? Well, I'm going to give you a quick little primer of 8 things that I've tried to draw from what Yehuda did in this Yehuda's awakening, Yehuda's arising, ascending series. The first thing is to see beyond self-interest. If you're going to think and talk and act like a covenant partner of the Creator of the universe when the world needs you to do so much, let me repeat that so you understand the gravity of what we're talking about. If you're going to think and talk and act like a covenant partner of the Creator of the universe when the world needs you to do it the most, you have to, first of all, see beyond self-interest. You have to see the plight of the people, the people's problem. You have to see need. You have to understand lack. You have to see folly for what it is. You have to see suffering for how much it hurts. See beyond self and self-interest to the bigger people problem. And then the second thing is, once you do that, you have to begin to focus and put your attention on and act for the greater good, not for your own sense of right and wrong or justice, but for the greater good. Third, you have to have a solution-minded Redeemer vision. Everybody can find out something that's wrong. Everybody can place the blame, but who can come up with a solution? Of a solution that's focused upon redemption and restoration and healing. That's the question. That's the third element of thinking and talking and acting like a covenant partner of the Creator of the universe when the world needs you to do so most. The fourth thing is to take responsibility personally. Don't worry about who else should do what. Don't try to assign a bunch of jobs to other people. Step up and take personal responsibility. This is what Yehuda did in this situation involving Joseph and Benjamin. Take responsibility and take accountability, whatever the risk is. Evaluate the risk, count the cost, and then deny self and go and do it. Take responsibility, accountability. You see, we're talking about the messianic alignment here. And then the fifth thing is use leader tone, pitch, and volume. Speak shalom, and even whatever you speak, let it come from a place and emanate and radiate shalom. Don't speak in anger. Don't speak in arrogance. Don't speak in mockery. Don't speak in sarcasm. Understand at this time to think and talk and act like a covenant part of the creator of the universe when the world needs it most. You must speak with leader tone, with Yehuda arising, ascending tone, pitch, and volume. What's more, the sixth thing is you must use kingdom royal court words, words that would be spoken in the Hebrew language, because that's the language of the heavenly courts, the language in which God communicates to man, the kingdom royal courts words, the language itself, and the Kedusha infused words and phrases and sentences and body language that you've learned by your intercession in the courts, by your courtiership in the higher courts of heaven. This is what it requires to think and talk and act like a covenant partner of the creator of the universe when the world needs it most. Seventh, to inspire others, not to instill fear in others, not to instill or exacerbate divisions and cause animosities and cause judgments. No, to inspire others to see and do good and to be better, to be more like covenant partners of the creator of the universe, to be the light to the world and the salt to the earth and the hope of the nations. And the eighth thing, after we inspire others to see, do good and be better, become doers instead of just talkers. Set the tone, set the example, be the model, and go forth and blaze the trail. Making the emunah connection, getting in messianic alignment. That's our calling. Vayigash. Let's continue this narrative. Vayigash elav Yehuda. And then Yehuda came very close. He nagashed. Came very close, drew very near to him, being Zaphanat Paneh. Vayomer bi Adonai. And he said, please, now, my Lord, Yedaber na avdeka devar be'oznei. Let your servant now whisper a matter. Whisper if you want to be heard for the kingdom. Whisper in your ear. And do not let your anger burn against your servant. Kikamoka beparo, for you are like a Pharaoh. Adoni sha'al et avadav more. And my Lord asked his servant, saying, Hayesh lachem av o ach? Have you a father or you're a brother? Unomer el Adoni. And we said to my Lord, Yesh lanu av, we have a father. Zakin ve'yeled ve'zukumim katan, and he's an old man, and we also have a child of his old age who is young. Ve'achiv met, and his brother is dead. Ve'yavuvater hu levado li'imu, and he alone is left of all his mother's children. Ve'avav ahavo, and his father loves him dearly. And then you said to your servants, Horiduhu elai ve'asimima aini elai. Bring him down to me, you said, so that I may set my eyes upon him. And I'll go into the English to make this quicker. Then we said to my Lord, that boy cannot leave his father. If he leaves, his father will die, and your servants would bring the grave of your servant father, our father, down to the grave, in and through and by sorrow. But you said to your servants, unless your younger brother comes down with you, you will not see my face again. And then we told our father, and our father, your servant, said to us, you know that my wife bore me 2 sons. And so Yosef, who is in the disguise of Zaphanat, is about to hear the voice of his father coming through the mouth of Yehuda, the voice of his father that he hasn't seen in 20 years. He's going to speak now through the mouth of Yehuda. You know that my wife bore me 2 sons, and the one went out from me. And I said, surely he is torn to pieces. And Yosef knows who he's talking about. And I have not seen him since. But if you take this one also from me, in the voice of the Father, and if calamity befalls him, you will bring my gray to the grave with sorrow. And so Yehuda continues now in his own voice. Now therefore, when I come back to your servant my father, and the lad is not with us, since his life is bound up with the lad's life, it will happen, it will come to pass that when he sees the lad isn't with us, he will die. So your servants will bring down the grave, your servant, our father, even to the grave. And then Yehuda goes forward and says, he confesses up to his vow that he made. Ki abdeka arav et hana'ar me'im avi. And your servant became a surety, a safeguard for the lad before my father. Lemor imlo avienu elecha, saying, if I don't bring him back to you, v'katati le'avi kol hayamin, man, I will bear the sin, responsibility, and shame and punishment before my father forever. Please, let your servant, let me, Yehuda would say, not all these brothers, but the servant who made this vow, let me remain instead of the lad, and become a slave to my Lord. And let the lad, Benjamin, go up with his brothers. For how could I go up to my father if the lad is not with me? Lest perhaps I see the evil that would come upon my father. The status quo has been shaken. He didn't know why or how, but he spoke, Yehuda did, he spoke the words of the creator of the universe into the situation. And he touched just the right veil. And a shaft of light, as it were, came from heaven and pierced the disguise of Zaphanat Paneach. And he could not restrain himself. He was undone. Before all those who stood by him, he cried out, make everyone here, all the Egyptians, soldiers, and Pharaoh's spies, go out from me. And so no one stood with him while Joseph made himself known to his brothers. And he wept aloud, so loud the Egyptians of the house of Pharaoh overheard it. But Joseph said to his brothers, hear me, Ani Yosef, I am Joseph. Ha'od Avichai, does my father still live? But his brothers could not answer him, for they were dismayed mipanav, at his face. Oh, can you imagine looking and finally seeing that face that you saw last in the pit as it was being pulled out of the pit and taken away by Ishmaeli and Midianite slave traders, and you knew that you had just sold your brother into slavery. The same face. They were dismayed at his face. They couldn't speak. Say something! And Joseph said to his brothers, Gashuna, please come near to me, Nagash me. And so they came near, and then he said, Ani Yosef, Achavkim, Akivkim. The one who sold, I am your Yosef, your brother, the one you sold into Egypt. But now, listen carefully now. This is what awakens when Yehuda arises and ascends. What happens when the beams of light from heaven pierce the soul of even the most frightening of men. But now he says, do not therefore be grieved or angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me before you to preserve life. For 2 years the famine has already been in the land, but there are still 5 more years in which there will be neither plowing nor harvesting. Joseph has a vision. So God sent me before you to preserve Sherit, a remnant for you in the earth, both a remnant of the nations for you in the earth, and to save your lives by peleta gadola, a great escaping, a great slipping away. So now, understand, it was not you who sent me here, but God. And he has set me in place, position, la'av lepharaoh, as a father figure to Pharaoh, and as Adon, as master of all of his house, and as Masal, as a decree issuer, a wise ruler throughout all the land of Egypt. This is indeed the Parsha of Yehuda arising, the defender of the broken, the defender of the father heart, the redeemer of Israel's first confidant, Joseph's confidant. The kinsman redeemer is arising. Hebrews goel, a male relative charged with or who assumes the responsibility to act on behalf of a relative in trouble, in danger, or in need. This is where we're going. The next phase of the story will be built upon this whole idea of the kinsman redeemer who arises, who is brought into the forefront, put on the world stage, at center stage, brought before the eyes. Ready or not, here he comes. Ready or not, it's time to behave. It's time to think, act, speak, interact with the world like a covenant partner of the creator of the universe. Are you ready? Are you in? Get ready, because it's go time. Well, Shabbat Shalom, beloved. It's time for me to leave you now. Blessings to you, and I'll see you, God willing, next week.